Thank you very much. Great stuff. So good morning, guys. My name is Richard Thomas, and I am the co-founder of Moxie People, the social housing recruitment specialists with a human-centered approach. We partner with housing associations and charities across Wales to bring them the very best talent through a robust recruitment and onboarding process. We're really excited to be delivering you today the third of three kind of webinars that we've delivered over the last 3 weeks with the amazing David Thompson. David is really kindly kind of taking the time out of his really busy schedule at the moment to kind of tell us all about EVP and in employer branding to help you as organisations in the housing and charitable sector to differentiate your offering, to help you retain but also attract the very best talent in this very competitive market space. So I'm really excited about today's session. I know, as I say, third and final instalment about kind of how we take the employer brand to market. And I know this is an area in which we're all very excited to learn more about and really how to get that good engagement with the external kind of community around us. So without further ado, over to David. And yeah, thanks for joining us again, David.
My pleasure, Rich. Good morning. Hello, folks. Here we are in December. So masterclass number 3, as I said this morning, is all about activating our employer brand and taking it to market. So right now, let's just get our share. Okay, and hopefully you're seeing front page of the PowerPoint there, Rich.
We're seeing the
okay, it needs to swap over. There we go. How's that? There we go. Great stuff. Great stuff. Okay, so activating our employer brand. Just a very quick reminder of who we are. Employer branding made easy. We are a consultancy. We help organisations to build their reputations through great employer branding, but we also provide employer branding coaching and training. We've been doing it for around 20 years. We focus on smaller organisations, even though the names you see there are the household names that you know. We work with many smaller organisations, encouraging them to kind of use their own skills and use their own resources to build their employer brands. So that's a little bit about us. Last time we talked about Cast Your Minds Back. We talked about developing our EVP, researching and developing it. We talked about developing personas so we understand our audiences better. And we looked at how we develop our creative platform, our big kind of story that we're going to go out to market with. And today our focus now shifts onto kind of making stuff and getting it out there, basically creating content and assets, launching our brand internally, taking it to market, and then measuring and managing it and making sure it is sustainable. So what I'm going to take you through today is just a few little excerpts from around the course, some of the stuff that you would be learning if you were doing the courses, basically. So to start off with, when we're starting to, we've now got our EVP, we've got our kind of creative platform. Now it's time to start bringing it to life and start kind of creating the assets that are going to allow us to go out and tell our stories. Different organisations do different things in different ways, but there's a kind of core shopping list, if you like, that you're going to need to focus on. There are certain things that are just kind of, if we don't have these things, we really can't tell our story. These are where our candidates will expect to find us. These are the places they'll expect to come back to find more information. And they are our social media channels, our career sites, our advocacy, our own people, getting our own people to share our content and our internal launch materials and our candidate materials. So we're making sure that we've got consistency all the way through the candidate experience. So, if you were to take that as your basic shopping list, those are the things that you need to focus on first. After that, as I said, other organisations do things in different ways according to where their talent sits and where they're going to find them. So it might be stands to go to career fairs. It might be more digital assets to put around for advertising purposes, but these are the basics. So let's just pick them off one by one. So obviously, social media has become more and more important over the last few years. It's the medium that's allowed employer branding to become a viable kind of proposition. Employer branding used to be a lovely idea, but unfortunately you had to do it through paid for newspaper advertisements, things like that. It's a very expensive business. But social media allows us to go out and tell stories and build audiences, obviously without any charge. So think again about your personas, your audiences. Think about where are they? What do they do? And select your social media channels appropriately. So it might be that they are all of a slightly older age group and they're mainly on Facebook. They might be younger and more visually driven, so they're on Instagram. They might be professional, so they're on LinkedIn. But it's a good idea to kind of select your social media channels according to the nature of your audience. So I've just picked an example here. Next, do some really lovely employer branding work using social. They're across all social channels. You can see Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, also Glassdoor. So don't forget the review sites that are very important. They have set up career-specific pages and sites for recruitment and careers. I try and encourage this as much as possible. I think it's great to be able to tell a clearly defined career story, but it's not always possible. I understand some organizations can say, no, any social media activity that goes out from this organization, be it about careers or anything else, has to come under the corporate kind of heading and feature on the corporate pages. But the advantage of doing things on creating a careers only page is that you can kind of build your own career story and not have your content kind of mixed up with more corporate story. Now, the disadvantage is that obviously the corporate feeds will already have a built-in following. So obviously, you get a head start there. You've got people who are already seeing this content. But my preference is always to try and build a career-specific social media pages. So start off by kind of setting up your infrastructure. It's always good to give it a name. So, whatever your company name is, careers or life at next, for example. I like the use of the life at hashtag and the life at name because it's just a bit more holistic than jobs at or careers at. It's talking about the culture. It allows you to do all kinds of things. It's just about what we do here and how we are. So it's a nice idea to kind of adopt a title like that. And the use of the hashtag, they use hashtags a lot. So they use hashtag life at next. I'll show you an example of that in a minute and why that's a good idea. So first of all, set up your social media feeds, get them established, and then you're ready to start producing content. The next thing to focus on is your career site. Remember, we looked at these career sites last week. Always, the place that people will come back to, even if they see social media stories, even if they see a job listing somewhere or a review on Glassdoor, they're gonna come back to a central hub, and that's gonna be your career site. So your career site really needs to sing. It needs to be vibrant. It needs to be authentic. It needs to have the right kind of content, talking about culture, talking about the environment. But we want it to be, just to really kind of throw open the curtains and show what it's like on the inside. So we talked about the value of investing in some good photography, having a really kind of nice, attractive career site. I showed you this work last week, which I think is fantastic for Essex County Council, which is really vibrant. Tells their story in a very concise way, very compelling proposition. It's well structured, but it's just so bright and vibrant. It's the kind of thing you're not expecting to see in that sector, and it would really make you want to go and work for them. So the career site is really critical. So make sure you focus on that. Again, it doesn't have to be page after page. Focus on quality over quantity. Even if it's only 2 or 3 pages, just make sure it's written in language that isn't kind of formal business speak, if you like. Make sure it's written in an attractive way that's talking about what's in it for the candidate, what you're going to love about working here, and make sure, as we said, it's vibrant and attractive and shows the organization from the inside out. So career site, make sure all of these pieces are in place before you try and go out and launch your brand. So that's the next important part. Then we talked about internal launch as well. We've said before that your internal audience is probably your most valuable audience. They can become a powerful sales force for you, particularly when we're trying to build our social media followings. They have networks of people who can, they can share with. Those people then share as well. So you get this kind of building cloud of people sharing your information. So an example here of what we're working on at the moment with a client, we're launching next week. We've got exhibition stands, we've got posters, Fomex boards going on the wall. We've created a PowerPoint presentation for them. We've got little giveaways like packets of seeds, trolley coins we're giving away, all in Hessian bags. So we're making a nice buzz out of it. It's not particularly expensive, but it's exciting. And we're launching this next week in the business, basically. And a little booklet here that you can see that tells the employer's story. Now, this is really attractive to, we want people on the inside to be excited about the employer brand, to understand it, because we said they're going to be our advocates and they're going to share for us. But also, it's really important that they feel connected to it because they were part of this process. Many of them would have been involved in the focus groups and the research that came to help it come together. So it's really nice to kind of pay them back and say thank you by showing them the work first. So always make sure you launch your work internally first. Make sure your own audiences are on side and excited by it. This is some work we did for Toolstation. So when we launched their employer brand, you can see we decorated the inside of their office. We had things like mouse mats, coasters, banners, and our little employer proposition leaflet as well. Really great way of telling the story, gets people on the inside excited. And I was reading a quote from Simon Sinek yesterday. They're saying, people will love businesses when their own employees love businesses. Your own employees have to buzz and feel excited about working for you. Then that naturally shows when you're speaking to customers, when you speak to clients, but also when you speak to candidates. So getting a buzz on the inside is an important thing to do when we kick off. What you can also see here is some candidate journey materials that we produce as well. So you can see a new starter welcome pack that we've done there. Obviously, great opportunity. We want everyone in the business to feel this and feel excited. But if we just do a launch and then leave it, obviously new people joining won't have had that. So they won't have had that experience. So it will just be looking at saying, I don't really understand what this is. So things like a new starter pack and onboarding presentation, great way of kind of telling people, here's our employer brand. This is what we stand for. This is why we work here. It can be really helpful. I've done a lot of work this week with another client who doesn't have any kind of formalized induction. And they were saying they're losing so many staff at the moment in the first few weeks just because people are coming in, not getting it, not under, they've got kind of twin things going on. People don't get the organization, don't understand how it's structured, why they should work there, what the culture's like. And equally, they're terrible. People are turning up without their laptops, and they don't, the wrong people are meeting them in reception and things like that. And as a result, their early days attrition is absolutely terrible. You gotta think, oh my goodness, you put all this work into hiring great people, and then you've got a leaky bucket, they're falling out the bottom, So really good kind of induction materials around, here's our employer value proposition, here are our values, this is what it means to work here. It's a really powerful thing, and it will help make sure people land correctly. So think about your candidate journey. So get the career site right, get your social media feeds right. That's absolutely the right thing to do. But then when people apply, what happens? Are they still receiving branded communications from you? Is their offer letter branded? Is it consistent? Are they hearing the same messages in interviews and any kind of assessment centres that you're running? So consistency throughout the whole candidate process and on into their hiring and onboarding is really, really important. So that consistency, don't forget about that. Okay, another thing to think about, might not be as important for today's audience, but sometimes we have to think about localization. If we're in different countries or different areas, there are cultural nuances and differences. So sometimes we have to think about, does this mean the same in, Malaysia as it does here. And sometimes even in the UK, different sites. Again, that company we're working with at the moment's got 2 sites, one in Derby, one in Burnley, both so different to each other. So we want some parts of the EVP and the employer brand that are consistent, but then other parts you're going to go, yeah, but we've got to tailor this to our local needs and make it make sense for our local audience. So once we're ready to launch our brand internally, it's a really good idea to kind of have leadership presentations to start at the top, get the leaders kind of on board, get them understanding what the brand's about, why we're doing it, where it came from. It's a nice idea to do some pre-launch stuff and do some little teasers around the business and coming soon. Little posters are a really good idea, or just even an email, a tiny little taster of the work. It's a really helpful thing to have ambassadors in your business. So maybe get 5 or 6 people from across the business, get them into a meeting to say, guys, this is what's coming. It'd be lovely if you could just kind of be my eyes and ears on the ground and my voice on the ground. If people got questions, can you answer them? Can you just be a bit of a cheerleader for me? So ambassadors throughout your business are a really helpful thing to have. They're also really helpful for helping you to collect the stories. So you can kind of say, okay, guys, here's our EVP framework. Can you go and find me some good stories to tell that, to bring that to life? So ambassadors is a really good idea. Then, as we showed you last week, we create our little playbook, our handbook. Here's the brand, here's what it looks like, this is how we use it, these are the fonts we use, this is the visual style we use. And that gives us our kind of guidelines to make sure that everything is nice and consistent. The toolkit will really help you, make sure everything looks good and it looks really holistic. So now we're ready to go. Basically, people are all kind of primed, we're briefed. We've got our guidelines in place. We've got the infrastructure of our social media and our career site in place. It's time to get rolling and start producing content. Now, content is great because it does a couple of really important things. It builds our credibility, so people know that we're an authority in what we do. But it also boosts our SEO, our search engine optimization. It makes our career sites more visible in Google. People can find us easier. So it's a really good free of charge way of boosting your employer brand and boosting your presence. And you can do all sorts of content. You can do white papers, blogs, little social media postings just about what's happening in the business and what people are doing, infographics, what's going on in our market, what we're observing, little videos of people interacting, and interviews with members of staff. It's a really good idea to mix it up. Try and mix up your mediums as much as possible if you can. I know the easiest thing to do is write blogs, and that's a really good starting point. But if you can do other things like video as well, it just makes the career site more sticky, makes people want to spend more time on it, adds a bit of variety, just helps to tell the story a bit better as well. So try and mix up your content as much as possible. As we said, get your ambassadors out in the business saying, okay, I've been out there and spoke to Mary this morning. Mary's got a story about flexibility and how our flexible work practices are helping her. Right, let's make a little story about that. Okay, how are we going to do it? We're going to film her, are we going to make a blog? All of these little bits of content that will really help to build your credibility and your search engine optimization. When we think about the type of content, quick swig of tea, bear with me. When we think about the content, we think about our candidates, think about them as customers on a buying journey. And they start at the top, not knowing who you are, probably not ever having heard of you, but you want to get their attention, say, hey, we're here. Then nurture that interest. Okay, I hear you, tell me all about yourself. Great, this is what it's like to work here. This is the environment we work in. Okay, that's interesting. Then we go more into the specifics. Okay, this is what we've got to offer. This is the job. This is the specifics. That's what we need from you. And then we finish with a commitment to apply. Okay, I mean, brilliant. I'm buying. Great. I'm applying for that job. That's the kind of funnel that we travel down as candidates. But traditionally, where we've done our marketing work as recruiters starts at desire and action. We start by kind of pushing a job towards them, saying, here's the final product. And then as an afterthought, think about, oh, by the way, this is what it's like to work for this company. This is why you should be interested. So we kind of have the model upside down, if you like. What we now need to do if we're going to be successful for employer branding is shift our mindset away from being candidate generators, people who are just out there pushing jobs, to being storytellers. So we need to tell stories. They need to be top of funnel messages that are attracting people's attentions, slowly building their understanding of the organization and their interest before. And so when we come to the point where we have jobs and we want them to look at them, essentially they're just a trigger. They're not the kind of battering ram that's trying to break down the door. They are just a trigger because we've already engaged with these people. So we need to shift our kind of behavior away from being, you know, how many bums on seats has this put in place to this week kind of thing, to how many people have we told our story to? You know, there needs a shift of kind of mindset. So yeah, think about those top of funnel messages. Think about things that are going to show how we behave, what our environment's like, how we work together. And remember, going back to our personas, we looked at we looked at personas last week, building an understanding of our audiences and what matters to them, what's important. And that's really important when we're producing content, because we want to produce stuff that's relevant. We don't just want to go out there and talk about stuff for the sake of talking about it, because it'll just fall flat, it'll miss its audience. So make sure we're talking about things that are important to our audiences. If we've done our homework and done our persona work, we will know what those things are. So again, it's another really great reason to do that persona work up front. And when we're starting to build content, as you said, top of funnel stuff, how we work together. So here's some nice examples that were going on during COVID. Rolls-Royce and Next talking about how we're looking after our staff, how we're working together. You know, just gives you a really good insight into what they're like as an organization, how much they care. It paints a really good picture. Equally, there were lots of posts about how we're supporting staff. So staff telling their own stories. Again, this one from Standard Charter on the right, using small bits of video. So just how we work together, how we treat people, how we're supporting each other, referring back to your EVP pillars. Remember, referring back to your stories, making sure that we're telling those stories really, really consistently. We must make sure that we are doing them authentically, using our own people to tell our stories. It's a really great way of doing it. There's no harm in having an introduction. There's no harm having a little post that says, here's Mary. Mary's going to tell, you know, here's Mary's story is this, and have Mary tell the story. But what we don't want is lots of posts from the CEO saying, come and work for us, it's a fantastic place to be. The reason being, people trust the voice of employees 3 times as much as the CEO. So people are looking for authenticity, real voices, real people. That's why we all kind of go to Glassdoor now to find out about companies. We want to hear those authentic voices. So we can use lots of different platforms to do that, to get our own people speaking. There are various little software packages available now, subscription-based for video. You can get people to shoot a little video on their iPhone or their smartphone, upload it, and it allows you to put professional looking titles on. Again, if you've done your employer brand design work, it stores them in a little library. So you've got this lovely kind of consistent looking employer brand work, easy to put together. You can do it on your phone in 2 minutes. So you can produce your own employer brand video in half an hour using this kind of software. And then you can store them in a library for repurposing later on to use in different formats. You know, don't worry too much about thinking, how am I ever going to have enough content? If you just produce one piece of content every week, that's fantastic. You know, that's really good. And you'll find over time, that content, be it a blog, be it a little video of somebody, you can repurpose in 100 different ways. So you can take it, you can recut it, you can put slightly different titles on it, you can put it on a different channel, but it will really enable you to, you know, just build up a little volume of work that you can use quite easily. So just wanted to show some nice, again, referring back to Next, they do some really nice kind of human stuff, human stories from within their organization, people telling their own stories, but also just see the arrow here pointing to the hashtag Life at Next. Now, if I follow Life at Next, what that means is then that every post that Next do as Life at Next appears in my Facebook feed or my Instagram feed. So I am now seeing this constant stream of feel-good information about Next, which is educating me, and that's costing Next to do nothing. It's costing Next nothing to do. They're just producing it. It's appearing in my feed. That's more power. I see that more than I see any paid for advertising. So if you get it right, people start following you. You get your own people sharing it, following a hashtag. Pretty soon you can build up a pretty good following of people who you are just educating day after day after day. So you're really priming them, as we said. So when those jobs come along, it's just a trigger. You're not having to do that heavy lifting every time you try and go and speak to a candidate. So, as we said, a really important method for building that volume of followers is through advocacy. There's a good reason for it. Social media sites, more and more, the algorithms behind the main social media sites are increasingly being set to reduce the influence of big brands. So they want, they want them to level the playing field, so big brands can't just muscle their way in and dominate your social media feeds. So your own people sharing your content kind of raises your game. If you just put it out there under your own name, it'll struggle because the algorithms will push it down. So getting your people to share content is so powerful. So use your own people, encourage them, keep doing presentations around your EVP and your employer brand, keep sharing it. If you have like a weekly newsletter that goes out to the business, don't forget to keep putting in there, guys, we're going to have some social media activity coming out this week. Can have a couple of posts. We would so appreciate it if you would share that content. It really helps us. Tell them what's in it for them. If you share this, it really helps us, but that'll really help you because we'll get more brilliant people coming to join your organization. At the end of the day, it makes your job easier, better, more enjoyable. So it's good for all of us. So create that hashtag. And start creating a kind of repository, a little library of good content that you can rely upon and repurpose whenever you need to. So that's the kind of freebie stuff, if you like. That's what we can do ourselves to generate a following, start creating interest, start creating an audience. After that, we go into the world of more kind of paid media, and that might be something that you want to look into as well. This all depends on needs and audience. There's a really good model that we use called PaySag, which kind of just kind of helps you plan out your media strategy and your media structure. So there's 4 parts to PaySag, which paid media, earned media, owned media, and shared media. So we're talking mainly at the moment about our owned media, the stuff that we own, our career site, our blogs, our content, our profiles, and our shared media. So we're going to produce this owned media, but then we're going to ask people to share it. So via social media, via review sites, via word of mouth, and via referrals, getting our friends and families to come and work for us. So that's the kind of shared and owned part. But then there's the earned part. Earned doesn't come into our world so much. This is where we're talking about getting reviews and newspaper interviews. So we don't do so much of that in the world of recruitment, but we do look at paid advertising. And paid advertising these days is a much more complex, but also much more effective method of finding talent. It used to be that when we talked about paid advertising, we just talked about job boards. But there's, at the moment, spending a lot of money on job boards is a bit of a lost cause because not many people are looking actively for jobs. So we want to be spending our money on getting to them when they're not looking for jobs. So that's things like PPC, paid pay-per-click advertising. So when we're looking at, say, a football website or a mountain biking website, if we've done our persona work and we've established that our people are all mountain bikers, for example, or they all have similar kind of lifestyle behaviors. We can pay for advertising on those sites that'll help, get them at their leisure, if you like. Search marketing, again, really powerful. 80% of job searches start at Google. If we are on Google and we are searching for care roles in South Wales or care roles in North Wales, and we've kind of bought those search terms, that can be a very powerful and cost-effective way of advertising. And the beauty of it is you only pay when somebody clicks on your ad as well, and pay-per-click advertising, so there's no wastage. So even if it doesn't work that well, it doesn't mean you're paying through the nose. So search marketing is a really effective thing. Social media marketing, again, putting ads into the social media feeds, and sponsored content on social media as well. So those are the things that you see at the bottom of articles. It says, if you've read this, you might like this. And they take you off into a different place. That's actually paid for advertising. So there's a number of different methods that in paid advertising that can be very effective. As we said, these days, nearly everything is pay-per-click. So it's becoming more and more cost effective. But you need to build a strategy that's right for your audience. And that comes back to doing your persona work really well, understanding where your audiences are, what their behaviors are, what they're going to respond to. So a little bit about media there. It's kind of hard to talk too much about media because media is different for every organization. Your mix will be different to another client's because you have different, different audiences in different places. But that model is a pretty good model to follow when you're starting to plan your media. So we're out there now, we're producing content. We're sharing it. We've got our own people as our advocates sharing it with the world. We've looked at our paid media strategy. We're doing a little bit of PPC marketing, a little bit of search marketing. We're in all the places that we should be, and we should start seeing results. What we need to make sure we do is measure. So we want to prove that our work has been effective, cost effective. We want to be able to go to our bosses and say, hey, look, we've done this year. Give us a bit more budget. We could do twice that next year. So measurement is really important. There are kind of two sets of measurements that we use in employer branding. The first one is kind of like hard hiring data. So if we do our work well, we should be seeing decreases in cost per hire, less agency dependency, more speculative applications. If we're telling our story correctly to people, more people should be accepting our offers because they're not coming along going, oh, sorry, this isn't what I expected. They're clear on what their expectations are. So we should have more accepted offers and we should have more people getting through interviews and to hire, again, because we've attracted the right kind of people. So these are metrics that you should be able to pull from existing data. If you have an applicant tracking system, these will be easy to pull. Even if you have kind of spreadsheets, you'll still be able to figure these numbers out, basically. You need your kind of starting figures, if you like, your baseline figures. But then if you're measuring these frequently, you should see the needle shifting on most of them if you're doing your employer brand work well. There's also retention data as well. If we're hiring the right people and we are attracting the right people, we should see more and more people joining and staying and getting through their probationary period. So we can look at retention in the early days. Once it gets past about 12 months, then there's too many other factors that can influence. But certainly your first 12 months attrition rates you should see dropping as well. So if you're tracking all of these, perhaps create yourself a little dashboard in Excel or something. You can start to really tell a story of like, this is working for us. This is really effective. The other set of kind of metrics we use, there's the hard hiring data, but that's half the job that we're performing. Yes, we want to attract better people. Yes, we want them to stay. But we also want to influence the next generation of people who are going to come and work for this organization. And that's the further up the funnel stuff that we were talking about. So this is about influence. This is about, have we now got people paying attention to our story? Are they understanding what they're saying? Is this being reflected in what we're seeing on things like review sites, for example? So measures here that we might want to look at are number of social media followers, number of interactions with our content, number of people visiting our career site, the amount of times they're downloading our content, what's happening to our review site reviews and our Glassdoor score, and then are our audiences saying more positive things about us. So there's hard hiring metrics and there's influence metrics, two separate things that we use to measure the success of our employer brand. But as you said, if you do your work well, you should see the needle shifting on nearly all of these things. So there we go. We're out there, we're running, we're measuring. We have a fully functioning employer brand. Just going to skip that slide. And it should now be showing us the results we're looking for. Employer brand, getting to this point is like a project. You have to run it like a project. You need project plans, you need allocated, kind of responsibilities, you need timelines. But once you get to this stage, it doesn't stop there. Employer brands are organic, they keep growing, they keep evolving. And if you just kind of get to this point and go, the work's done and walk away, what you'll find is you'll come back 6 months later and it'll look like it's withered on the vine. It needs nurturing, it needs constant, input, not a huge amount. It's like the effort of boiling a kettle. If you think about boiling a kettle, there's a lot of effort to get to that, or boiling a pan of water. It takes a lot of effort to get that water to the boil. But once it's boiling, to keep it boiling doesn't take a lot of effort. You just need to do a little bit of simmering work every week. But you need to do that work, otherwise it drops back and goes cold on you very quickly. So just keep it simmering, keep working on it. And you'll find it really does work for you. It works wonders. Keep looking at those data and analytics. Give things time, give things enough time to work, but don't persist with things that clearly aren't working. So know when to get out and kind of go, that doesn't, get out, cut our losses on that and focus on the things that do work. You'll figure out relatively quickly what works and what doesn't work. But don't be scared to have a couple of failures. You might put a bit of money into search engine marketing and it might not work first time. Not everything will work. You're looking at it as a holistic piece, and keep that content refreshed and relevant. Keep it going. If you follow that, then you should find yourself in a pretty good place. You should find yourself getting the edge on your competitors and find your employer brand is doing good things for you. There we go, folks. That's your masterclass complete. You are now fully fledged. If I had a certificate I could give you, I would do. You could now claim that you know about employer branding and how to put it together. It's been a real pleasure teaching you. I hope you found them really useful. In fact, the number of you came back for three servings shows that it was either useful or you are just complete gluttons for punishment with nothing better to do on a Wednesday morning. But hopefully you found it really useful stuff. As I said, it's been a real pleasure. And thank you for listening and thank you for learning. And if we have any questions, I will happily take them now. Back to you, Rich.
Yeah.